Since it launched in 2003, the BMW X3 has gone on to be one of the most important cars for this company. In fact, last year, its 20th anniversary, it became the biggest selling vehicle for BMW worldwide. More than 3.5 million X3s have been sold over the course of 20 years. So now here's the fourth generation, the G45, and we're here at BMW's test facility in Miramar, the south of France, to see how it drives. So we're not going to be here today talking a lot about the looks because, as you can see, it's covered in camouflage. Same goes for the interior as well. They've covered all that up. We're going to find out more about that as we go along. We do know it's got the curved display infotainment system like the bigger X models. It's got the big widescreen dashboard and it's got an iDrive controller, so that's good news as well. We do know a few little details about the exterior. The wheelbase, that's the distance between the front and the rear axles, is exactly the same on this G45 model as it was on the preceding G01 Mark III. So that's 2864 millimeters from there to there. They've improved the aerodynamics on the entire bodywork. So we've got things like air curtains at the front, active air vents, a flat underbody. There's a special treatment on the D-pillar as well that will help with aerodynamics. That's improved the coefficient of drag on this model from the old one. So this one is now 0.27. That's slightly slipperier than the old car, which was 0.29. That's an increase of 0.02. So yeah, a little bit more aerodynamic, but generally looks pretty much like you'd expect an X3 to look. You can probably imagine it with a slightly sloped roof on the back for an X4. But apart from that, at this stage, we don't know a huge amount about the finished product in terms of the aesthetics. What we do know is there's two models here today. This is the M50, the M Performance models. This has got a 6-cylinder B58 engine, 3-litre turbocharged. It's got xDrive as well, it's 4-wheel drive. We'll be taking that out for a bit of handling later on to see how it drives. And there's also a 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid here as well. Both cars are on the optional adaptive suspension, but we're going to find out a little bit about their ride comfort, their handling, and a little bit of their autonomous safety features as well. Okay, so we're here in what is the performance version. It's called the M50. We don't know a lot about the facts and details about it just yet, but we know it's got the B58, so we're talking about a 3-litre turbocharged 6-cylinder engine. Obviously a bit more power than the M40 it replaces. They have kept the wheelbase the same as the old X3, but it's got a slightly wider track at the back. We've got 20-inch tyres, Continental Sport Contact 7s. We've just been shown all of the steering and how it changes according to the weighting and speed of the car and what mode you're in. But it's got a new steering system in this one, so it's a belt-driven steering system this time, which allows for greater feel and feedback through the steering wheel, and it really works. This is a fantastic, really well-balanced performance SUV. So we're in sport mode at the moment. We're in the car in its most dynamic settings. So there's quite a bit of weight to the steering, but it's accurate, it's immediate as well. There's none of that slack around the centre that you sometimes get with these systems. The car feels very, very balanced. One of the differences for the M version is that it gets a limited slip differential on the rear, and you can feel that out of tighter corners. Pushes onto the outside rear wheel. But yeah, I mean, this is a very early pre-drive of the M50 and this generation of X3, but already the signs are this is very impressive performance SUV, nicely balanced. There's a bit of body lean, but again, this has got the adaptive dampers, this particular model. You get a standard M suspension, but this one's got the adaptive dampers. You get a little bit of lean in the corners, but enough to give you information about what the car's doing, where the grip is, the weight transfer. Yeah, very impressive so far just on this handling display. Right, so we're out on the road now in a 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid model. So this isn't as sporty as the M50 that we were in earlier, but it does still have the adaptive dampers. So there's two settings. There's personal, which is like a comfort mode, and then there's sport, which is the more dynamic setting. So we've been chatting to the chassis engineer, and basically it's all about, obviously the dampers control the body, and then in the suspension you've got the little metallic shims that do the wheel control, and it's finding that balance between ride comfort and the sort of sporty nature that you would expect of a BMW. So the interesting thing with this car is this is on 20-inch alloys, so even though it's not the sporty model, it's still got the big wheels. and it's just been tuned really well. Rides really comfortably, so there's sort of very gentle, languid body movements up and down, but it never gets loose and floaty or sort of through compressions do you feel like the car's sort of wallowing. It's just always really nicely controlled. You do pick up a few of the bigger surface imperfections like over speed bumps and lateral ridges. You will feel them, but they're never uncomfortable. And yet, if you switch it into sport, you get that firmer vertical movement. The car's body control is even more impressive. You get sort of slightly less lean. The way it sort of loads itself up onto the outside is more controlled. So one of the things they've done there is they've stiffened up the anti-roll bar mounts. So you can actually have a softer anti-roll bar setting, but because the mounts are firmer, it means the car loads up better in corners. So you get less lean, but it's sort of comfortable and controlled. And everything about this car is very elegant and refined. You know, you get a great ride comfort, mechanical isolation. I mean, you don't hear a lot of the suspension noise at all, or tyre noise. Obviously, these are pre-production cars, but we've been told they're about 99% there. So it's a difficult balancing act to pull off. They've got to make the car comfortable because it's an SUV, but it's still a BMW. So, you know, customers expect it to feel precise and accurate, and the balancing act they seem to have struck here, very, very impressive. We're looking forward to get longer, but we've been out on the roads now in France. Don't believe that myth that all French roads are velvet smooth. The one we're on now is nice, but we've been on some very bumpy roads up in the mountains, and the car, you know, car's dealt with it all very well. We've also been shown two very extremes of the suspension control. You won't get these in the production cars, but the engineer can set them up for us so that the car goes into its completely softest damping setting and then its most firm. And in both situations, obviously, there's a lot more body movement in the soft modes where you get a lot of lateral and diagonal movements of the body shell over big compressions. Whereas in the very firm one, it's really planted to the road and it moves up and down abruptly. But even in both of those settings, it never lost wheel control because, as the engineer said, all of that is done by the shims. It's not done by the dampers, it's done by the shims in the suspension. So you always get the good wheel control. The car's always adhering as much of its tyre to the tarmac as it can do. So you get the grip, you get the handling, but luckily with the nice damping setups that you also get this comfort. We can't wait to try it when it's fully ready. Right, so now we're going to try some of the autonomous safety features in the X3. We've already seen this in action, so we've got a bit of an insight into it. But basically, the car has a 300-metre primary radar and a camera mounted up here above the interior mirror. And what we're going to do is we're going to accelerate. There's a balloon Ford Fiesta in the distance. We're going to accelerate up to 50 km/h and not brake at all. It's very hard to do this. You have to kind of tune yourself not to do it. But the car will make an alert first of all. Then it will start braking sort of half power, and then it will brake even harder, but not apparently full braking power. So it's quite actually an organic stop. Basically, it's not going to hit that Ford Fiesta up there. So here we go. Now the key thing is not to brake yourself. You've got to let the car do it. So here we go. Perfect. Little alert, bit of braking, then it builds the braking power up, and we've not hit the car in front. So if I was an unattentive driver, it's prevented a crash. So that was with a car. It's quite progressive the way it brakes to a car. What we've got now is a pedestrian standing in our way in the distance. Now, because pedestrians are more agile and they can move, or they might be aware and suddenly step back, the car waits until later. So this is an even later point that the car will brake. But we're still going to drive at this person in the distance at 50 km/h and let the car do everything. This is as long as I don't touch the brake pedal. Right, here we go. So this will be later. The car will wait and we'll use a firmer amount of braking power before we get to this pedestrian. It's so unnatural doing this. Here we go. And he's safe. Haven't run him down. It's a good day. Right, this is going to make it a little bit more realistic and heart-stopping. So now We're going to be doing this at 30 kilometers an hour, but we've seen it work at 50 as well. Now the car is going to use full braking because we've got a cyclist down there on the right who's not paying attention. I'm not paying attention as the driver. We're in an urban area. He's going to come out, and at the last second the car is going to brake, and it's going to brake very firmly. So here we go. So this is 30 km/h. Still no sign of him. That was full braking power, so the car's used its ABS. You can feel it locking up. It's leaving marks on the tarmac where it stops. But again, it's waiting to the last second because the cyclist can still brake or stop. But it also tries to leave a bit of space if it's going a bit faster, because if the cyclist is nervous and has a little wobble, they might come towards the car a bit. So it tries to stop even earlier when it's going quicker. So very impressive safety stuff, because we've tried AEB before, but this is really good. Really, really good. Upping the stakes now. We've got rid of the cyclist. Now we've got a child. I've just been told in the Euro NCAP there would be a car in front of this child in the distance. So it's trying to replicate the scenario of a child walking out behind a car in a built-up area. So it's only a dummy. It doesn't matter if we run it down, but I don't really want to run a child down on a launch. So here we go. This is 30 km/h again. Again, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to move my foot off the accelerator. I'm not braking or doing anything. The car's doing all of this. Wow. Young fool. So that was our pre-drive of the forthcoming 4th generation X3. Very impressive so far. Handles really well. The changes they've made to the subframes and to the suspension arms and to the struts, all that make it all firmer, really made this into a nice sharp handling SUV. It's comfortable as well though. It was impressive really seeing how different it feels in terms of ride comfort and suspension and the work that they've done with the damping. Yeah, we need more time in it, obviously, and we're keen to see what it looks like. Obviously, you can see here, it's got a different number plate position. But so far, first signs for the new generation X3, very impressive indeed.